The city was quiet that night, but not peaceful. The kind of quiet that hides danger in the shadows. Neon lights flickered weakly over the wet streets as rain kept falling from the dark sky. The air smelled of metal, smoke, and sadness. People hurried under their umbrellas trying to get home before curfew, and no one noticed the small sounds coming from a narrow alley between two tall buildings. Alex, a human engineer who worked the night shifts repairing power grids, was walking home after a long day. His jacket was soaked, and his boots splashed through small puddles. He was tired, hungry, and just wanted to reach his small apartment in Sector 47, but then something stopped him. A faint cry, soft but sharp, like a child's voice echoing through the rain. He froze and looked around. The city was empty. The sound of rain tapping on metal roofs filled the air. Then the cry came again, a bit louder. It wasn't a normal cry, it had a strange tone. High and trembling, he followed the sound toward the alley, his heart beating faster with each step. When he looked into the dark alley, he saw them. Two tall figures dressed in black armor were dragging something small and blue along the ground. The small figure struggled weakly, her hands trying to reach for the wet ground. A small voice whispered, "Please, no." And the sound sent a chill down Alex's spine. It was a little alien girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old in human years. Her skin glowed faintly blue under the neon light, and her eyes were wide with fear. She wore torn clothes, and her feet were bare against the cold pavement. The two armored beings spoke in a deep, rough language, their voices metallic under their helmets. They didn't care that she was crying. They just pulled her closer to a dark hover pod waiting at the end of the alley. Alex's breath caught in his throat. He had seen aliens before, of course. The city was full of them since the peace treaty. But never like this. Never a child being taken against her will. He wanted to walk away. He wasn't a soldier or a hero. He was just an engineer with nothing but a toolbox in his bag. But when the little girl looked up, her glowing eyes met his, and something inside him snapped. He whispered to himself, "No one else will help her," then stepped forward. The taller alien turned suddenly, eyes glowing red through the helmet's visor. "Back away, human," it growled in broken English. Alex didn't answer. His boots splashed on the wet ground as he moved closer. The second alien pulled out a stun blaster. Aiming straight at him, Alex's pulse raced. He looked around quickly. His eyes landed on a broken metal pipe lying beside a trash bin. He grabbed it fast. The alien fired, and the stun bolt shot past his shoulder, burning a hole in the brick wall behind him. The smell of ozone filled the air. Alex swung the pipe, hitting the blaster out of the alien's hand. The weapon fell and slid across the wet ground. The little girl gasped. One of the aliens shouted in anger and charged forward. Alex ducked. The alien's fist smashed into the wall. Sparks flew as the armor scraped against metal. "Run!" Alex shouted to the girl. She tried to move, but her leg was chained to a small restraint. Her tiny hands pulled at it desperately. Her skin shimmered under the rain. The second alien grabbed Alex by the collar and threw him against the wall. Pain shot through his back, but he didn't stop. He picked up the pipe again and swung it, striking the alien's helmet hard. The impact made a dull thud. The alien stumbled back, hissing in pain. The little girl reached out a trembling hand toward him. "Please," she whispered again. Alex crawled forward, but before he could reach her, the first alien pressed a button on his wristband. The hoverpod engines roared to life, glowing blue as they prepared to lift off. The sound was deafening. The rain turned into mist around them as the pod rose slowly from the ground. Alex tried one last move. He threw the pipe toward the open door. It hit the edge, but it was too late. The pod rose higher. The little girl's face appeared in the small window, her wide eyes full of tears. She looked down at him as if trying to remember his face. Then the pod shot upward into the stormy sky, leaving a trail of blue light behind. Alex stood there soaked and trembling, his chest rising and falling fast. The metal pipe rolled away into the gutter. The alley was silent again except for the sound of rain hitting the empty ground. He looked up at the sky, the glow of the pod fading into the clouds. He could still hear the girl's voice in his head, that tiny whisper asking for help, and it broke something inside him. He knew most people would walk away, pretend they saw nothing, pretend it wasn't their problem. But Alex couldn't do that. He had seen her eyes, and now he couldn't forget them. He looked at the small, charred mark on the wall where the blaster bolt had hit. His hand trembled as he touched it. The rain washed down his face, mixing with sweat and something that felt like guilt. He whispered softly, I'll find you, little one, his voice shaking but firm. Then he picked up his wet bag, slung it over his shoulder, and walked back toward the main street. Not to go home, but to prepare. The night was just beginning, and somewhere out there, a little alien girl was waiting for him to keep his promise. The rain had not stopped. It kept falling harder as if the whole sky was angry. Alex stood at the corner of the alley, water dripping from his hair, watching the blue glow of the alien pod fade into the distance. He clenched his fists, his mind screaming, "I can't let them take her." The little girl's frightened eyes still haunted him. Glowing in his memory like tiny stars lost in the dark, without thinking he ran. His boots splashed through the puddles as he chased the faint trail of blue light that hung in the air. The pod was fast but not invisible. He pulled a small device from his pocket, an old tracker from his repair kit. It wasn't made for this kind of job. But Alex was good with machines. He could make broken things work. And tonight that skill was all he had. He pointed the scanner toward the sky. Its screen flickered, showing a faint moving dot heading toward the city's edge. "Got you," he muttered under his breath. He jumped on his hoverbike parked by the corner shop. The engine coughed before roaring to life. The neon lights reflected off its wet metal surface as Alex twisted the throttle and shot forward into the storm. The wind stung his face, the rain blurred his vision. But he didn't slow down. Every second mattered. He weaved between traffic, the city lights flashing red and white on his visor. The pod ahead was small but powerful, flying low between the skyscrapers. Trying to disappear into the night, Alex's heart pounded, the sound mixing with the steady hum of the bike. "Come on, stay with me," he whispered to the tracker. The dot blinked again. Moving closer to the outer districts, that was bad news. The outer edge of the city was controlled by gangs, smugglers and people who didn't care who lived or died. Suddenly, a bolt of blue energy flashed past his bike. Missing his shoulder by inches, Alex gasped and looked up. The kidnappers had noticed him. One of them leaned out of the pod window with a plasma rifle. Firing again, the blast hit a street sign. Sending sparks flying across the road, Alex swerved sharply, his bike nearly slipping on the wet road. He gritted his teeth and pushed the engine harder. He had no weapon strong enough to fight back. But he could be smarter. He ducked under a broken bridge, taking a shortcut through a maintenance tunnel he knew from his repair work. The tunnel was narrow and dark, water dripping from the ceiling. His headlight cut through the gloom, showing old pipes and broken cables. He could still hear the pod engines somewhere above. If he came out on the other side fast enough, he might cut them off as he raced through. Memories flooded his mind. His younger sister back on Earth. Lost years ago during the invasion war. He had been too late to save her. And that guilt had followed him every day since. Maybe that was why he couldn't walk away from the alien girl tonight. He couldn't fail again, not this time. The tunnel ended near the old freight port. He burst out into the open, rain slapping against his visor. He looked up. There it was. The pod hovering low as it passed over a line of abandoned warehouses. Alex smiled faintly. "Perfect," he said, and sped toward it. He jumped off the bike while it was still moving, sliding across the wet ground until he reached a stack of cargo containers. The pod was landing just beyond them. Engines roaring, he peeked from behind a container. The two kidnappers stepped out, dragging the little girl by her arm. She stumbled, crying quietly, trying to resist. Alex took a deep breath. He had no plan, only courage and desperation. He grabbed a metal wrench from his belt, heavy, solid, and ready. He whispered, "Hang on, kid," and ran. The taller alien saw him first and shouted something in a deep voice. The second turned and fired his blaster. The shot grazed Alex's arm. Burning his jacket, pain flared, but he didn't stop. He threw the wrench as hard as he could. It hit the blaster, knocking it out of the alien's hand again. Sparks danced on the wet ground. The girl screamed as one of them tried to pull her inside the pod. Alex leapt forward, slamming into the alien's back. They both fell into the mud, rolling. The alien's armor was thick, but Alex managed to grab a loose wire near its helmet and yank it hard. The alien roared, its mask flickering with static. "Go!" Alex shouted at the girl. "Run!" But she didn't run. She was too scared. Her small legs shook as she tried to move. Her voice trembled. They hurt me if I run." Alex looked at her with fire in his eyes. "Not anymore," he said. Then the second alien attacked, throwing him against a container. The impact knocked the air out of him. His body screamed in pain. But when he saw the little girl trying to crawl away, Something inside him rose again, stronger than fear, stronger than pain. He picked up a broken piece of pipe lying beside him and charged, hitting the alien in the leg joint where the armor was weakest. The alien fell to one knee. Alex struck again, and the creature collapsed with a metallic thud. The first one crawled toward the pod, hitting a button on his wrist. The engines flared to life again. "No," Alex shouted. He grabbed the girl and pulled her away from the pod just as it lifted off the ground. The force of the takeoff threw them backward into the mud. The pod shot up into the sky, vanishing into the storm clouds once more. Alex lay on his back, gasping, the rain hitting his face. The little alien girl clung to him, crying softly. "They'll come back," she whispered. He looked down at her, his heart breaking. "Then I'll be ready next time," he said, his voice quiet but full of promise. Far above them, the blue lights faded again into the clouds, and Alex knew this was far from over. He didn't just witness a kidnapping. He had stepped into a war he didn't yet understand. But one thing was clear in his mind: he was not going to stop until she was safe. The city never slept. But that night it felt darker than usual. The storm clouds still hung low, lightning flashing across the skyline. Alex returned to his small apartment, soaked, tired, and shaking. His arm burned where the blaster had grazed him, but he didn't care. The image of the little alien girl crying in the rain replayed in his mind again and again. He dropped his wet jacket on the floor, turned on the light, and walked straight to his workbench. The room was small, filled with old tools, cables, and broken machines he used to fix for extra credits. But tonight it wasn't about repairs, it was about finding her. He placed his cracked tracker on the table and wiped the rain off its screen. It flickered weakly, but still showed a faint trace of the ship's energy signature. "You're not gone yet," Alex whispered. His fingers moved fast, connecting wires, adjusting frequency, pushing the limits of the old tech. The device buzzed, sparks jumping across the table. And then a small red dot appeared, moving slowly outside the city boundary. "Got you," he said softly. He sat back in the chair, breathing hard. His heart was still pounding. His mind kept asking why. Why risk his life for someone he didn't even know? But every time he thought about walking away, he remembered those glowing blue eyes filled with fear and trust. She had looked at him like he was her only hope, and that feeling couldn't be ignored. Alex stood up, his reflection flashing in the window. He saw a man who looked nothing like a hero. Wet hair, tired eyes, and a scar from an old accident across his jaw. But behind those eyes was fire, the kind that made ordinary humans do impossible things. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small black case. Inside was an old plasma pistol, scratched but still working. A relic from his army days before the war ended. He hadn't touched it in years, but now it felt heavy and right in his hand. He checked the charge full. He slid it into his belt and took one last look around his messy room. On the desk next to the tracker was a small hologram photo of his younger sister smiling. Her name was Lyra. She had been taken years ago by raiders when the borders collapsed. And he had never found her. Maybe that was why he couldn't ignore the girl tonight. Maybe saving her was a way to heal what he couldn't fix before. He whispered to the photo, "I couldn't save you, Lyra, but maybe I can save her outside." Thunder rolled across the sky. Alex packed his gear, flashlight, med kit, EMP grenades from his army box, and a portable scanner. He strapped the tracker to his wrist and stepped out into the night again. His hover bike waited by the door, shining under the streetlights. He jumped on and started the engine, the familiar hum steady and strong. The city's neon towers faded behind him as he rode through the industrial outskirts. Wind hit his face, carrying the cold smell of rain and rust. He followed the tracker's signal across cracked highways and empty fields until the buildings disappeared. The red dot moved deeper into the wastelands, an area long abandoned after the mining collapse. "Of course," Alex muttered. "Where else would scum like that hide?" He reached the edge of the old mining valley, a wide desert of red dust and broken machines. The rain had stopped, leaving steam rising from the ground. The only sound was the soft hum of his bike and the wind whistling through metal ruins. Alex stopped on a ridge and looked down. In the distance, half buried under the sand, stood an old mining station, its lights faint but visible. The tracker's red dot blinked right on top of it. He zoomed in with his visor, spotting figures moving near the entrance, armored guards patrolling the gate. "That's it," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The Draxon Syndicate, no doubt." He had heard rumors. They smuggled alien children, sold them to warlords or slavers. The government pretended not to see, too scared or too paid to act. Alex parked his bike behind a rusted excavator and crouched low. Scanning the area, his old soldier instincts woke up. He checked the pistol charge again and adjusted the sound muffler. He couldn't fight them head-on, not yet. He needed to get inside, find her and get out alive. As he watched, a cargo shuttle lifted off from the station, heading north, carrying containers, maybe full of supplies or prisoners. He didn't know, and it made his blood boil. He whispered under his breath. "You picked the wrong human to mess with." He crawled closer, keeping his steps light. Every move slow and quiet, his heart pounded. But his breathing was steady. Years of field work had taught him patience. He reached the back fence and pulled a small tool from his belt, a portable cutter. The red beam sliced through the wire silently. He slipped inside, crouching behind old metal barrels. From this close, he could hear the guards talking. Their voices were rough and deep. Speaking in alien tongues, one of them laughed. "The girl's worth a fortune." Alex clenched his jaw so tight his teeth hurt, he whispered, "Hold on, little one." "I'm coming." Inside the main structure, he could see dim lights glowing through the cracks in the walls. The air smelled of oil and fear. He tapped his wrist device, marking the building's map from old mining blueprints. There was a storage level underground, perfect place to hide captives. As lightning flashed again across the valley, Alex pressed his back to the cold wall and took a deep breath. He knew this was only the beginning. He was one man against a syndicate. But something inside him whispered, "You've faced worse." He smiled faintly, bitter but determined. "All right, Draxons," he said under his breath. "Let's see how you like a human problem." The storm had finally stopped, but the real one was just starting. The red sand stretched for miles, broken only by old mining towers and rusted machines. The night was cold and silent, but Alex moved like a shadow. Slow, careful, every step measured. The Draxon Syndicate hideout stood in the middle of the valley, half buried under layers of dust and forgotten metal. From a distance it looked abandoned, but Alex knew better. He could see faint blue lights pulsing under the sand. Energy signatures, hidden power cores still active. He crouched behind a broken hauler truck, scanning the area through his visor. 4 guards patrolled the gate, their armor black with glowing red eyes. A drone hovered above them, rotating slowly. The air hummed with quiet danger. Alex's fingers tightened around his pistol. He whispered, "One mistake, and I'm dead." But there was no fear in his voice. Only focus. He needed a way inside. A direct fight would be suicide. He checked his wrist device again. The hologram map flickered, showing a network of tunnels below the main building. Maintenance shafts from the old mining days. "That's my door," he said softly. Alex crawled along the rocks until he found the vent entrance near the ridge. It was half covered with sand and broken mesh. He brushed it clean, pried it open, and slipped inside. The air was thick with dust, and the metal walls groaned with age. The tunnel was narrow, forcing him to crawl on his elbows. His flashlight flickered, throwing shaky beams ahead. Every sound echoed, the creak of metal, the distant hum of generators, the low rumble of alien voices somewhere above. Sweat mixed with the dust on his face, but he kept moving, following the tracker's soft pulse on his wrist. The signal was stronger now. The little alien girl was close. He reached a junction where 2 tunnels met. A faint light glowed through a grate above. Alex peered up carefully. He was under a large hall filled with crates and equipment. The Draxon guards were unloading containers, talking in their deep, metallic language. He caught a few words from the translator chip in his ear. Shipment, buyers, children. And his stomach twisted. He whispered to himself, "So it's true," and his anger grew heavier than fear. He moved forward again until he reached a small hatch that opened into a dark corridor. The floor above vibrated slightly. Machinery, footsteps, and faint sobs. The sound of children crying. He swallowed hard. Gripping the edge of the hatch, slowly he pushed it open and pulled himself up. The corridor was dimly lit by flickering red lights. Metal walls lined with pipes. The air smelled of oil and burned circuits. Alex crouched low, pistol ready, listening. No guards, not yet. He followed the sound of the crying step by step, until he reached a large sliding door. A code panel blinked beside it. He connected a small cable from his wrist device and hacked into the panel. Sparks flew, the screen flickered, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. What he saw inside made his heart freeze. Rows of cages lined the room, small and cold. Inside each cage sat a child, alien, terrified, eyes wide with fear. Some were whispering softly. Others just stared into nothing. The room was silent except for the low hum of the machines that powered the locks. In the far corner, under a dim light, was the little blue-skinned girl, her knees pulled to her chest, her small hands wrapped around a glowing pendant. Her eyes lifted slowly when she sensed movement. For a moment, she didn't believe what she saw. "You came back," she whispered, her voice shaking. Alex stepped closer, his voice low. "I told you I would." He pressed a finger to his lips. "Quiet now, okay?" She nodded quickly, tears shining on her cheeks. He knelt beside the cage and started working on the lock. His tools clicked softly as he bypassed the circuits. The lock released with a quiet beep. He gently opened the door and helped her step out. She was shaking, cold and barefoot. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded weakly, clutching his sleeve, but before they could move, a loud metallic thud echoed behind them. Alex turned fast. One of the guards had entered the room. The red glow of his eyes cut through the darkness. The alien barked something into his comm, then raised his weapon. Alex fired first. The blaster hissed. Hitting the guard square in the chest, the alien stumbled back, sparks flying from his armor, but he wasn't down. He roared, charging forward. Alex rolled aside, pulling the girl behind a crate. He fired again, hitting the alien's leg. The guard fell to one knee but managed to slam his fist onto the alarm button. A siren screamed through the hall, red lights flashing everywhere. The girl covered her ears, trembling. "They're coming," she cried. Alex grabbed her hand. "Then we run," he said. He fired another shot to destroy the control panel, sparks bursting across the room, then kicked open a side door that led to a maintenance corridor. The alarm echoed behind them, metal footsteps growing louder. They sprinted through the narrow hallway, Alex holding her hand tight, turning left and right through the maze of pipes and vents. The sound of boots followed them, the Draxons shouting orders. Energy blasts hit the walls around them, showering sparks. They reached another tunnel and slid down a steep metal ramp. Landing hard at the bottom, the girl gasped. But Alex pulled her up quickly. "You okay?" She nodded, her eyes wide but brave. They moved again, ducking under low beams until they reached a half-open cargo door. Alex peeked outside. The night sky was visible through a gap, and in the distance his hoverbike was parked behind the ridge. Still untouched, he turned to her. "Almost there." "Little one." But just as they stepped outside, a heavy voice echoed behind them. "Human?" it growled. "You shouldn't have come back." Alex turned, his pistol ready. A massive Draxon figure stepped out of the shadows, taller, armored differently, the leader. His eyes glowed bright crimson, and his voice was filled with cold hate. The girl gripped Alex's arm, whispering, "That's him. He hurt the others." Alex raised his weapon, the rain starting to fall again, his voice calm but sharp. "Then tonight, he learns what it means to face a human." The Draxon smiled, showing sharp teeth. "We will see." The storm roared above as the final fight began to take shape. The first drops of rain mixing with sparks from broken lights, and somewhere deep inside the darkness, hope began to burn bright again. The rain fell harder as thunder rolled across the red valley. Lightning flashed, lighting up the metal ruins for just a second. Alex stood face to face with the Draxon leader. His chest rose and fell fast, his pistol aimed steady. The little alien girl hid behind him, clutching his sleeve with trembling fingers. The Draxon leader stepped closer, his heavy boots thudding on the wet ground. The red glow of his eyes cut through the darkness like fire. "You think you can stop us, human?" he hissed. "This galaxy belongs to the strong." "And you are weak." Alex didn't blink. "If being strong means hurting children, then I'll stay weak forever," he said quietly. The Draxon's lips curled into a snarl. In one swift motion, he pulled a blade from his side, the edge glowing blue with plasma energy. He swung it down with deadly force. Alex barely rolled aside, the blade hitting the ground with a loud hiss. Sending sparks across the mud, he fired his blaster, the shot hitting the Draxon's shoulder. But the alien barely flinched. His armor absorbed most of it. "You'll have to do better than that," the creature growled. Charging again, Alex ducked behind a broken metal pillar, pulling the girl with him. Energy blasts flew past them, burning through the air. He knew he couldn't win like this. Not head-on. He looked around quickly, his mind racing. The mining yard was full of wreckage, pipes, broken cranes, and power cables sparking in the rain. "Come on," he whispered to the girl. "Stay low." They crawled behind a fallen beam, moving toward the far end where the old power grid still hummed faintly. If he could overload it, maybe it would give them a chance to escape. The Draxon's voice echoed through the yard. "You cannot hide from me, human." "I smell your fear," Alex whispered under his breath. "Smell this," and fired a single shot at a loose cable hanging from the grid. The shot hit, sparks flew, and a surge of electricity ran through the metal floor. The Draxon roared in pain as his armor crackled with blue light, smoke rising from his back. "Run!" Alex shouted, pulling the girl's hand. They sprinted toward the tunnel entrance, their feet splashing through muddy puddles. The girl's small voice gasped, "You hurt him?" Alex shook his head. "Just slowed him down." They reached the inside of the facility again, alarms still blaring, red lights flashing through the corridors. Alex's breathing was heavy, but his eyes were sharp. They turned a corner and entered a large chamber filled with storage crates and glowing consoles. Something caught Alex's eye, a door marked with alien symbols. It looked different, newer, cleaner. Guarded by security codes, he scanned it quickly. The readings were strange, multiple life signs inside. Weaker than normal. "This must be it," he whispered. The girl looked up at him, confused. "What is it?" Alex placed his hand on the cold metal door. "The reason they took you." He hacked into the control panel again. His fingers moving fast, the door hissed open slowly, revealing a dim room beyond. The air inside was cold, filled with a strange humming sound. Alex stepped in and froze. The room was full of transparent pods, rows and rows of them. Each pod contained a small figure, young aliens sleeping or unconscious, their faces pale under the blue light. Machines were connected to them, drawing glowing liquid from tubes attached to their skin. Alex's stomach twisted. "They're draining them," he whispered, his voice cracked. "They're using their energy, their life force." The little girl's hand gripped his tightly, her voice shaking. "They said it makes them rich. They said it makes their weapons stronger." Alex felt his throat tighten. He looked at her small, frightened face, and anger burned like fire in his chest. "Not anymore," he said firmly. He ran to the main console, scanning the controls. The screen flickered with alien script, but his translator chip struggled to keep up. He didn't care. He found the power controls and started overriding them. Alarms screamed louder, the lights flickering wildly. "What are you doing?" the girl asked, her voice rising. "Setting them free," Alex said, his fingers kept moving. The system flashing warning. "Overload imminent." He smiled grimly. "Good." The pods began to open one by one, steam hissing into the air. The children inside gasped and coughed, waking up slowly, confused. Some cried, others just stared at Alex with weak eyes. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now. I've got you." The little alien girl helped another small child out of the pod, her hands trembling but determined. "We have to go," she said urgently before Alex could answer. A heavy door at the end of the chamber burst open. The Draxon leader stood there again, his armor burned but his eyes brighter than ever. "You think you're a hero, human?" He roared. "You're just another fool." Alex turned toward him, blaster ready. "Maybe, but fools have a way of ruining evil plans," the Draxon charged. Shaking the floor, Alex fired again and again, bolts lighting up the room, but the alien kept coming. Alex dodged left, then right. Firing at the pipes above, steam exploded, covering the room in thick white fog. The alien swung wildly through the smoke, roaring in rage. Alex grabbed the girl and the nearest children, leading them toward the exit. "Come on. We're not dying here," he said. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded like thunder as they ran through the corridor. Explosions echoed behind them. The overload had begun. The entire station trembled. Lights flickering out one by one. Alex glanced back once, seeing the red glow of the Draxon's eyes fade into the smoke. They reached the outer gate, the cold night air hitting their faces. The rescued children stumbled beside him. Shivering but alive, the little alien girl looked up at Alex, her voice small but full of hope. "You came back for us," she said softly. Alex smiled faintly, rain dripping down his face. "I said I would." Behind them, the hideout erupted in flames, the explosion lighting up the valley like dawn. The shockwave rolled across the sand, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The night sky burned behind them, red and orange flames rising high into the storm clouds. The explosion from the Draxon hideout shook the valley, sending waves of dust and smoke across the wasteland. Alex and the rescued alien children crouched behind a sand dune, the little blue-skinned girl holding tightly onto his arm. Her small chest rose and fell fast, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Alex looked back toward the burning facility. His face was covered in dust and sweat, his clothes torn and soaked from the rain. "We did it," he whispered. "They're free," but deep inside he knew it wasn't over. The Draxan leader had survived too many hits to die that easily, and his kind never gave up until blood was repaid with blood. He turned to the children, his voice low but calm. "Listen to me, we have to move, there'll be more of them coming soon." The little ones nodded silently, trusting him. Their faces glowed faintly under the red sky, scared but hopeful. He guided them through the rocky terrain, keeping them low between the dunes. The wind howled across the valley, carrying the faint sound of engines. Draxan reinforcements were already on their way. "Faster," Alex said, pushing forward. The little girl stumbled once, but he caught her before she fell. "You're okay, keep going," he said softly. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "Why are you helping us, human?" He smiled faintly. "Because someone helped me once. A long time ago, they reached the edge of the ridge, where his hover bike was still parked under the broken crane. He quickly removed its power cell and rewired it into a beacon transmitter. He pressed a button, sending a coded distress signal to the outer patrol zones. "Please work," he muttered. The children huddled together, whispering softly in their alien language. The little girl sat beside him, holding her glowing pendant. "They will come for you," she said. "He will come." Alex looked at her, his eyes steady. "Then let him come," he replied. A deep rumble shook the ground a moment later. Shadows moved through the smoke, and from the burning wreckage, the Draxan leader emerged, his armor cracked, glowing from inside like molten metal. His face mask was half broken, showing gray skin scarred by fire. His voice was cold and full of hate. "You destroyed my operation, human. You killed my men." Alex stood, his pistol in hand, his voice steady. "And I'll do it again if you touch these kids." The Draxan laughed darkly. "You think you can protect them? You are just flesh, fragile and small." Alex's jaw tightened. "Maybe, but humans don't run from monsters." "We fight them," the alien roared and charged forward, the ground trembling under his heavy steps. Alex fired 3 quick shots, the bolts hitting the alien's chest. But he kept coming, smoke rising from his armor. Alex dove aside, rolling across the sand, the alien's blade slicing through the air where he had just been. The children screamed. The little girl covered her face. Alex stood again, firing until his weapon overheated. Then he threw it aside and grabbed a piece of metal pipe from the ground. The alien swung his plasma blade again. The blue light reflecting in Alex's eyes, they clashed, metal against energy, sparks flying through the night. Alex's arms ached from the impact, but he didn't stop. He dodged, struck, ducked, every move fueled by pure will. The Draxan knocked him down hard, sending him crashing into the sand. The alien stomped forward, raising his blade for the final strike. The little alien girl screamed, "No!" And in that moment, her pendant glowed bright. The light spread across the ground. Hitting Alex's fallen hand, the air shimmered for a second, and Alex felt a strange warmth flow through him. The pendant's energy pulsed, bonding with his body. The Draxan hesitated. What is this?" he snarled. Alex stood slowly, the pendant's light glowing faintly through his veins. His eyes reflected its soft blue light. "It's called hope," he said, and charged forward. He ducked under the alien's swing and slammed the metal pipe straight into the armor's power core. The impact sent a surge of blue energy through both of them. The Draxan screamed, sparks bursting from his chest. His blade flickered and went dark. Alex pushed forward with every ounce of strength left in him, shouting through the roar of the storm, "This ends now." The alien fell backward, his armor exploding in a burst of light. The shockwave knocked Alex off his feet, the sand flying into the air. When the dust settled, only silence remained. The Draxan lay still, smoke rising from the broken armor. Alex dropped to his knees, breathing hard, his hands shaking. The blue glow faded slowly from his skin. The little girl ran to him, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "We did it." The other children came out from behind the rocks, watching quietly as the fire in the distance began to fade. The sky slowly cleared, revealing stars shining above the red valley. Alex stood again, limping slightly. He looked at the wreckage and then at the children. "No one's ever going to hurt you again," he said softly. In the distance, he saw lights flashing through the clouds, rescue ships responding to his beacon. He smiled tiredly. "Looks like we've got a ride home." The little alien girl held out the pendant, now dim but warm. "You keep it," she said. "It listens to brave hearts." Alex took it carefully, looking at the soft blue glow. "I'll make sure it shines for both our worlds," he said. As the rescue ships landed and bright lights surrounded them, Alex looked one last time at the stars. The night that began with rain and fear ended with fire and freedom. And deep in his heart he knew this wasn't just about saving one child. It was about reminding the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. The first light of dawn spread slowly across the red desert, turning the broken metal and sand into shades of gold. Smoke still rose from the ruins behind them, curling into the brightening sky. The air was quiet now. Only the soft hum of the rescue ships filled the silence. Alex stood on the ridge, his eyes fixed on the horizon. His body ached, every muscle screaming with exhaustion. His jacket was torn, his arm bandaged, and his face carried a deep cut across the cheek. But his eyes were calm, clear, and full of something new. Peace. Behind him, the little alien girl sat beside the other rescued children near the rescue ship. Wrapped in silver blankets, they were safe now. Safe because one human refused to walk away. The wind blew gently through the valley, carrying the faint sound of their laughter. Weak but real, Alex walked toward them slowly, his boots sinking slightly in the sand. The girl looked up as he approached, her face lighting up with a soft smile. "You came back," she said again, her voice small but full of warmth. Alex knelt beside her, smiling faintly. "I told you I don't break promises." She reached out and touched the glowing pendant still hanging around his neck. It shimmered faintly in the morning light. "It belongs to you now," she said. "It's a symbol of my people." "It means protector." Alex looked down at it, turning it gently in his fingers. The blue glow reflected in his eyes. "Protector," he repeated quietly. "I like that. A rescue officer, human but wearing a Space Alliance uniform, approached carefully. "We got your signal," he said. "You're lucky we found it. The Draxon Syndicate's been on our list for years." "You just took out their biggest outpost." Alex nodded tiredly. "I wasn't trying to take down a syndicate. I was trying to save a little girl." The officer looked at the frightened children, then at Alex and smiled faintly. "Sometimes, saving one life does more damage to evil than 1,000 soldiers." Alex didn't answer, but the words stayed with him as they prepared to leave. The little alien girl climbed into the ship's ramp and looked back at the burning horizon. Her small hand held the edge of Alex's sleeve for a moment. "What will happen to us now?" she asked quietly. Alex crouched to meet her eyes. "They'll take you to the refugee station. You'll be safe, you'll get food, a bed, and people who will care for you." She hesitated, her eyes glassy with tears. "Will I see you again?" Alex smiled softly. "Maybe not soon, but someday, when the sky is quiet again." She reached into her blanket and pulled out a small piece of glowing crystal, breaking it from the pendant she once wore. She pressed it into his palm. "Then you'll always have my light," she said. For a moment he couldn't speak. He looked at the small crystal shining in his hand, warm against his skin. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'll keep it safe." The girl hugged him tightly, her small arms barely reaching around his neck. "You're not like the others," she said. "You're different." He smiled, his voice quiet and steady. Maybe that's what being human means. When the children were finally aboard, the rescue ship lifted off slowly, its engines humming low. The dust swirled around Alex as he watched it rise higher, turning from silver to a shining dot against the blue morning sky. He stood there long after it disappeared, the soft hum of the engines fading into silence. The desert was empty again, peaceful in a strange, lonely way. Alex looked down at the glowing crystal in his hand. Its light flickered like a heartbeat, faint but alive. He could still hear her voice in his mind. "You'll always have my light." He slipped the crystal into the pendant casing and placed it back around his neck. The faint blue glow reflected off his worn face. He whispered to the sky, "She's safe now." "They all are, then." Turning toward the horizon, he started walking. His boots left deep prints in the red sand. Each step steady and full of purpose, the sun climbed higher, bathing the wasteland in golden warmth.